919 FM, your morning of impact. Samm Marshall shares uplifting stories and conversations with people making Johannesburg and the world a better place.
And so we continue those conversations. And joining me right now on the show is Cleola Kunene, the JSE head of SME Development and Customer Experience. And let's talk about this amazing project that they're running, right? So under her leadership, the SME Rise Programme has not only expanded its national footprint, but has become one of the most trusted platforms for connecting high-growth SMEs with funders who can unlock their next stage of scale. Also, there was the 2025 Capital Matching Roadshow that headed to Gauteng and Limpopo. And Cleola and the team, they are driving the practical outcomes. They are building the models that bring funders, development finance institutions, and investment-ready SMEs into the same room. In actual fact, she's not just doing it in South Africa, but she is a global speaker, thought leader, and thinker who is obsessed with how to scale and build. Cleola, good morning. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Sam, for having me. I'm very happy to be on your show again.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that you are absolutely obsessed with how we're able to grow SMEs, how we're able to scale it. Talk to me a little bit about the roadshow and also this two events that I honestly believe is groundbreaking.
Thank you so much. So yes, I am obsessed. As you know, this is my purpose and my heart. Everything I do is to help our country and obviously our SMEs. But yeah, this is an amazing initiative. As the JSE really wants to be a catalyst for growth, especially given the challenges that we have in our economy. Helping SMEs is not just good for business, it's good for impact, and it's good for all of us to drive job creation. So when we do this work, we look at it from a sustainability perspective to understand that we want to make sure that it really works, right? Because ultimately, if it really works, we all benefit. So the way we've gone about it is in a very practical manner. As you know, there is a gap in terms of funding. Funding still remains one
Yeah.
of the top five challenges for SMEs. This is not new information for everyone. But what maybe we don't understand about funding is that there is a lot of capital. It's not that we have a challenge with money that's available to be deployed. We have a challenge and a gap between the funders and the SMEs meeting each other. And when I say meeting each other, it means the requirements that the funders have and the type of funding that they have versus the SMEs maybe not being funding ready or maybe not knowing all the different funders that are out there, all the different funding requirements that actually is aligned or right for their business. So the work that we do at its core is really about looking at those two processes and requirements and figuring out how to make sure the SMEs get to the point where they understand the different funding landscape, the different types of funders, and what's right for their business, and that they get funding ready, whether it's their financials, their legals, etc. And on the funder side, bringing the funders, helping them ease the process, the requirements, and then matching them with the right type of SMEs. And that's at the core of what capital matching actually is and why it works so well. And it's worked very well for the past 3 years.
It sounds, when you talk about it, it sounds so incredibly simplistic, right? It actually does. And I don't know if it's you have a way with words that demystifies the challenges. But
Mhm.
are all SMEs across the countries in the different provinces, are they or do they have the same challenges? Or are you finding that depending on the province, like how different is Gauteng to Limpopo, for example, for SMEs?
So if you look at the roadshow, and I'll speak to the different provinces, I think different SMEs have different challenges. Not all SMEs have the same challenges, and I think that is a fair assumption to make. Um, if you look at the Western Cape, so we started this in the Western Cape, and this year, for instance, the way we went about it in the Western Cape is we didn't host a capital matching event in Cape Town. We literally did a physical roadshow, and we did like maybe 2 roadshows from Saldanha to Paarl all the way to George, right? And then in Gauteng, we met also with different stakeholders and then hosted the event. And similarly in Limpopo, we had to do a lot of pre-work to understand the landscapes, so what we would term roadshows and stakeholder engagements. If you look at the different provinces, Western Cape does not necessarily have a problem with funders being in the province. Similarly with Gauteng. However, even though there's a lot of funding institutions, it does not necessarily mean that the funders are going to where the SMEs are, first and foremost, right? If you look at, for instance, where we were in the Western Cape, we went to, for instance, Vredenburg, right? We went to Athlone. We literally had capital matching events there. It's the first time that they've had funders come to them in their community to come and educate them and speak to them, right? In Athlone alone, we had 250 SMEs that came to us. Can you imagine? 250 in one day. And we had about 11 funders that joined us there. Gauteng is a little bit different. I think Gauteng has got a lot of funders and a lot of funders that go to everywhere in the province. However, a lot of SMEs are not necessarily funding ready still. There's still a gap between the funders and the SMEs. So the work in Gauteng is not necessarily in terms of getting to know the funders or access to the funders. They've got a lot of access. Access is easy, but their readiness and their somebody helping them at a cost-effective rate with their financials, helping them understand what type of funding is right for them, you know what I mean? And also being introduced to diverse and alternative funders is so they have a different gap. But if you look at Limpopo, they have both. They have a vast gap in terms of access, where there is a huge demand and limited access in terms of diverse funders, and then also limited education and readiness and funding readiness. So Cape Town, access maybe here and there, Gauteng, education, Limpopo, definitely both. And also, if you look at Limpopo, there is a large number of SMEs in the agri value chain. So not necessarily, we're not talking just about primary agriculture. We're talking about, everybody that does packaging, logistics, all sorts of things. Similarly in the mining sector. And there's a huge gap in these sectors where they are just excluded from getting access to funding, and they're not necessarily getting that education. So there was a lot more work and groundwork to do in Limpopo as opposed to the Western Cape or Gauteng. Gauteng, access is easy. Getting the SMEs here is easy. Limpopo, it took a long time to build that out because there is such a significant gap in the province.
Talk to me about Friday. What happened this past Friday at the JSE?
Oh, we had lots of fun. So we had.
I was on air, unfortunately.
You definitely missed out. So we had about, as I mentioned, so we had funders here, and we did 2 things, right? We did capital matching, where we had funders, like even Access Bank, Old Fares, Business Partners. We had Vodacom here. What did I say? Merchant Capital, OAO Investments, etc. So we had quite a number of funders here, including DFI such as NEF and SETFA. SETFA has been a core partner for us in terms of driving all of these initiatives. And they were here with their deal makers, and the way we structured it is that SMEs were matched. So it's a pre-arranged schedule. The funders receive the profile beforehand. The SMEs are ready, and they meet with the funders and they pitch. So it literally back to back to back. You, as an SME, imagine on a day, it's very exciting for them, because imagine you're on the other side always doing applications, and suddenly you get an opportunity to meet with about 7 funders in one day based on your funding requirements. And you just pitch. And on the day already, I can tell you some of the funders already started applications with some of the SMEs because they
that's
felt
amazing.
Yes, because they're ready. That's the point. They are funding ready. And that's the point. But what we did cater for this time, which we in the previous years struggled with a bit, was catering for SMEs that are not ready but need to meet with funders, right?
Yes.
Because readiness implies that you've got some of your documentation. Let's say there's different level of readiness from 70 to 100%. And those are the guys that get to meet with the funders, pitch their business, etc. But if you're not ready, but you do want an opportunity to start the process, meet with funders, what we catered for was service matching, where SMEs had the opportunity. So we did an informal area where there was what you would call almost like tables with different funders, or kiosks with different funders, and they could speak to their people and get on their list, um, and they know that they're not yet ready. And so we didn't turn anyone away. We didn't say, okay, we can't accommodate you. We even had some walk-ins on the day that we accommodated in terms of service matching. And that was the point, to make sure that we both catered for the formal pitching as well as the informal matching, where SMEs that may not be fully ready also at least have the opportunity to start engaging with funders and getting on their books for that process to kick off.
You had over 1,000 SME applications received this year, right?
Yes,
What
yes.
does the patterns or the early signals that are emerging? Are you and the team seeing specific type of businesses or sectors or founder profiles rising faster than expected? And what does that say
Mm.
about kind of South Africa's future economy?
What's been interesting and what we've seen is, in the past, there was a lot of leaning towards technology.
Yeah.
The last year, we saw a huge uptake in terms of manufacturing and a need for funding in the manufacturing space. There's a huge gap in terms of funding in the manufacturing space. But what we're seeing now is also more wellness businesses. So in the food industry, food space, food wellness, and also beauty products, we're seeing a lot more people creating, we see a lot more people creating their own skincare ranges, their own beauty ranges. And these businesses are actually starting to do quite well because there is a market for natural African products, and they're tapping into that market. So we're seeing an uptake in those industries coming through.
That's absolutely amazing. Do as we wrap up, and maybe a future state question, right? If we fast forward 5 years, what is the vision for the SME Rise program? What would success look like at scale for the JSE? Because I think
Mm,
and I think what you're doing beautifully is, and I don't know if it's a maybe in time people they will tell us if it's a good thing or bad thing. But I love what the JSE is positioning itself as now, not just through this program, but even through, for example, they're running learnerships to understand how the JSE works. There's a lot of
mm,
stuff that the JSE is doing that, for me, from an outsider perspective, is really changing the
mm,
way we see the stock exchange. And also, it
mm.
says to me that the stock exchange sees that it has a broader role to play in society.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the JSE, the stock exchange, is for South Africa, right? We are South Africa's stock exchange. We're not some American company. So I think part of it is also about access and ensuring that things are like capital is accessible. That at its core, that's what a stock exchange does. We facilitate access to capital and we facilitate access to growth opportunities. We do that for large enterprises. That is why we're the largest exchange in Africa. And we're now doing that in a meaningful way for small to medium sized businesses. When we started the SME Rise solutions for the JSE, our core purpose and focus was to really help scale medium-sized companies to become the next generation of large enterprises, because that was a gap in the industry. And without more large enterprises, even small businesses can't benefit, right? Never mind the impact on job creation and on the economy. And so our goal is still to continue that, to help small to medium-sized businesses to scale, to grow, to create more jobs. And going into the next few years, we are going to continue facilitating that. We're launching a roadmap to listing. as a core solution, even for companies that are exiting from private equity firms and VC firms. And we're going to focus a lot more also on the market access because we've done that very well on our accelerator program, where we've scaled companies into international markets, and that's helped to grow their revenue to double-digit growth. What we've seen there, and over 50 companies that we've scaled so far, at 38% revenue growth on average. And so we want to continue that and tap into that, but also really zoom in on international expansion and help more companies expand into markets such as the Middle East, in Asia, etc. And that is what we will be focusing on in the next few years, and really making sure that we help companies grow and scale and eventually list. And we will continue supporting the economy and helping to create jobs in our country.
Cleola, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Okay, that's Cleola Kunene, the JSE's head of SME Development and Customer Experience. And she's really one of the country's most influential champions for entrepreneurial growth, right? Cleola plays a pivotal role in shaping how the Johannesburg Stock Exchange supports small and medium enterprises, ensuring that access to capital markets and investor networks become a lived reality for businesses across South Africa. Under her leadership, the SME Rise Programme has not only expanded its national footprint, but has become one of the most trusted platforms for connecting high-growth SMEs with the funders who can unlock their next stage of scale. They've also, with their 2025 Capital Matching Roadshow, which is headed to and expanded to provinces like Gauteng and Limpopo, Cleola and her team are driving practical outcomes-driven models that bring funders, development finance institutions, and investment-ready SMEs into the same room, closing the gap between opportunity and execution. And as you heard, this past Friday, they had that event at the JSE. And so many companies got the opportunity to be able to be in the same room, to move beyond paper and pen, to actually meet the funders and gain the valuable experience. And hopefully, and also, which is amazing news, a lot of those organizations on that meetings already entered into agreements with some of those funders. So we are going to see some exciting businesses over the next couple of years that will be able to scale and also be employing people.